Enugu to Ilori. All across Nigeria, we bring you news and information that will make your day. We are news. We are 24 News Radio TV.
At the top of the morning to you this beautiful Friday morning as you join us yet again on another edition of your favorite program this time of the morning today in the dailies. Of course, this is 24 News Radio and Television. My name is Olushola Iwale. We'll be bringing you the stories from the usual lineup of papers this morning, talking about the Punch, the Nation, the Tribune, the Vanguard, and the Daily Post. Do stay with us, or rather come along with us as this promises to be very interesting as usual. The first story this morning is coming from the Daily Post, and of course it's a politics-related story. It says 2027 ADC momentum fades as top opposition leaders delay defection. The body of the story goes thus: the initial momentum that came with the announcement of the African Democratic Congress (ADC) as the platform for the opposition coalition appears to be on the decline. Daily Post reports that this has been attributed to the reluctance of some presidential candidates, Peter Obi and Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, to officially join the party. Former Governor of Anambra State and 2023 presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, former Vice President and two-time presidential candidate of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar, and former Governor of Rivers State and 2023 presidential aspirant, Chibuike Rotimi Amechi, are some of the bigwigs in the coalition of political leaders. That's a story you find in the Daily Post this morning. On to the Nation newspaper this morning, where the first story says, it's something that concerns the entire country, talking about the management of the national, or rather the nation's refineries. Ojulari, NNPCL lost $500 million monthly to refineries operation. The country lost between $300 million and $500 million monthly while the Port Harcourt refinery was operating, Group Chief Executive Officer GCEO of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited (NNPCL), Bayo Ojulari said yesterday. He said, "When I resumed," and I quote, "When I resumed, one of the first priorities I focused on was the refinery. I did a quick review to see if we could quickly fix it. What I found is that we were losing between $300 million to $500 million on a monthly basis in the refinery. We were pumping about 50,000 barrels of crude to go into the refinery. What was coming out was less than 40% equivalent of what was coming in." It's still the same story so many years after. Back to the Daily Post for another politics-related story. It's coming from the northern part of the country, and it says 2027 NNPP, not my party. We're open to discuss with anyone. That's coming from Rabiu Musa Kwakwanso, a one-time governor of Kano State. National leader of the New Nigerian People's Party (NNPP), Rabiu Kwakwanso, has said that the party is open to discussion with other parties, individuals, or coalitions ahead of the 2027 general elections. However, Kwakwanso said that his party was not in a hurry to enter into any form of agreement with anyone, even though they are ready to do whatever it takes to bring smiles to the faces of Nigerians. The former Kano State Governor, who spoke at the NNPP National Executive Committee NEC meeting in Abuja on Wednesday, said that at the moment there is no discussion ongoing, adding that leaders and members of the party will be carried along for a collective decision to be reached. For more on that story, check it out in the Daily Post this morning. And still, or should I say, run up to the 2020 election, there's another story linked to a serving governor, talking about Governor Bala Bauchi State. It's also coming to you from the Daily Post. PDP's 2023 loss linked to zoning failure. Bauchi Governor Bala Mohammed. Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed has revealed why the PDP lost the 2023 presidential election. Mohammed, who is chairman of the PDP Governors Forum, made this disclosure on Thursday while responding to questions in an interview on Politics Today, a program on Channels Television. According to him, the PDP lost the election because it failed to zone its presidential ticket to the southern part of the country. And I quote, "Life is always a learning process. When we did it in 2023, it was not a pleasant experience, and that was why we lost," he said. Daily Post reports that PDP during its National Executive Committee NEC meeting zoned its presidential ticket to southern Nigeria ahead of the forthcoming 2027 elections. That's a story you'll find in the Daily Post this morning. And also coming from the Daily Post is another story that says 300 billion naira loan, or your assembly brands APC's Shitu absentee lawmaker. Lawmakers in the Oyo State House of Assembly have described one of their colleagues, Ibrahim Shitu, as an absentee lawmaker. The lawmakers noted that Shitu rarely attends plenary sessions. They made these assertions in a statement jointly signed by the Majority Leader Sonjo Adedoyin and the Chairman, House Committee on Information, Media, Public Affairs and ICT, Wahid Akintayo. The statement was made available to Daily Post on Thursday in Ibadan, the state capital. Shitu, who represents Saki West, State Constituency on the platform of the All Progressive Congress APC, had on Wednesday raised the alarm that the Assembly had secretly approved a loan of 300 billion naira for Governor Sheyi Makinde. The APC lawmaker claimed that he was not informed about the meeting. Shitu, in the statement obtained by Daily Post, also said that the loan was approved while members were on recess. That's a very interesting story this morning, and you'll find it in the Daily Post. Going back to the Nation newspaper, there's a story here credited to the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and it says, "I'm driving growth with foreign engagement," says Tinubu. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu explained yesterday that every one of his international engagements was motivated by the responsibility Nigerians entrusted on him, or rather to him, in 2023 to restore Nigeria's pride and dignity on the global stage. He added that in line with the task, the foreign trips and his administration's reform programs were aimed at securing opportunities that would lead to growth, job creation, and prosperity for all Nigerians. The president stated this in a post on his verified X handle @official_ABAT shortly after arriving from Japan and Brazil. Said his engagements in the Asian and South American nations focused on unlocking critical investments. He said, and I quote, "It feels good to be back home in Nigeria after our recent engagements in Japan and Brazil. In 2023, you entrusted me with the responsibility of restoring our pride and dignity on the global stage, and I remain fully committed to that mission. Every handshake, every agreement, and every meeting is guided by one goal: to secure opportunities that translate into growth, jobs, and prosperity for Nigerians." For more on that story, check it out in the Nation newspaper today. All right, we now move on to the Vanguard newspaper this morning, where the top story says 2027 opposition parties battle INEC over voters' data. That's the story right there on the front page of the Vanguard this morning. And it goes thus. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and opposition political parties yesterday disagreed over alleged irregularities in the ongoing voters' pre-registration exercise and figures coming out. According to the African Democratic Congress, ADC, PDP, Labour Party, and former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, the new voters' pre-registration figure showing massive listings in the southwest and specifically Osun State compared to other parts of the country is worrisome and portends danger for the 2027 polls. But INEC said it is normal going by past records. Meanwhile, forensic experts in the country have declared their readiness to help the Commission address the disparities. That's a major story coming from the Vanguard this morning. And now on to the major headline story in the Punch newspaper this morning. Tariff war. Federal government intervenes as states discos rift deepens. As the crisis between states and electricity distribution companies continues to degenerate over who has the power to fix electricity tariffs, the federal government, through the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, has summoned all the stakeholders to a meeting scheduled for next week, the Punch reports. Energy commissioners of state governments under their umbrella body known as the Forum of Commissioners for Power and Energy in Nigeria have repeatedly insisted that the Electricity Act 2023, as amended, has empowered state governments to regulate their respective power markets. But power distribution companies, under the aegis of the Association of Nigerian Electricity Distributors, insisted that although the Act enabled the states to regulate their power markets, the state governments lack the power to put a price on cross-border electricity. As a result of this, neither the states nor the discos are ready to shift ground over who has the authority to regulate electricity tariffs, as state regulators make moves to design tariffs for the electricity markets in their domains. Starting with Enugu State, power distribution companies declared that this cannot work. That's a story coming to you from the Punch this morning. Going back to the Vanguard newspaper, there's a story that says Shetima Edum Cardoso push risk management for economic growth. Vice President Kashim Shetima, Finance Minister Wale Edum, and Central Bank of Nigeria CBN Governor Olayemi Cardoso have urged Nigerians to embrace risk management as a national culture to strengthen economic resilience amid global uncertainties. The call was made yesterday in Lagos at the 24th Annual International Conference of the Chartered Risk Management Institute of Nigeria, CRMI, themed Global Risks, Local Solutions, represented by his advisor on economic and financial inclusion, Nuruddin Zauro. Shetima said the risks facing Nigeria, such as climate change, cybersecurity, pandemics, and disruptive technologies, are immediate and evolving. He stressed that resilience must extend beyond government policies to shape decisions at the household, business, and institutional levels. And I quote him now, "We live in an interconnected world where these risks are here, not distant. Preparedness is not a luxury. It is the foundation of stability and prosperity. Leaders, institutions, and citizens must adopt risk management as culture," he stated. CBN Governor Cardoso, represented by Blaise Ijebo, Director of Risk Management Department, said that Nigeria's economy is already under pressure from supply chain disruptions, capital flow reversals, and extreme weather. He noted that recent policy reforms are aimed at restoring stability by embedding risk awareness in economic planning. For more on that story, turn to the Vanguard newspaper. Vanguard newspaper, another 2027 related story. 2027, Amechi rules out stepping down. Former Minister of Transportation and Chieftain of the African Democratic Congress (ADC), Mr. Rotimi Amechi, has declared there is no retreat, no surrender in his quest to contest the presidency in 2027 on the platform of the ADC. Amechi, former Rivers State Governor, stated this during an interaction with journalists in Kano after a meeting with a coalition of traders in the state. In an interview with the BBC Hausa service, monitored by our correspondent in Kaduna, that's the Vanguard correspondent, yesterday, Amechi said, "I will contest the ADC presidential primary, and by God's grace, I hope to win so that I can face Tinubu in 2027. I am not stepping down for anyone. Let the people decide who they want to lead," Amechi declared. He maintained that every aspirant in the party had the right to seek the ticket, describing the contest as healthy for internal democracy. On the state of the country under President Bola Tinubu, Amechi said, and I quote, "Whether the government wants to conduct credible elections or not, one thing is certain, time is up. Nigerians are tired because no one is happy under Tinubu, not even in Rivers or across the south. He tries to frame it as a north-south contest, but the truth is people are suffering everywhere." According to him, Tinubu's appointments have not reflected genuine inclusion. Even among the Yoruba, many feel excluded. He only rewards a few individuals close to him while the majority remain neglected. On whether the ADC, like the All Progressives Congress (APC) and PDP, might zone its presidential ticket to the south, Amechi said, "That is a party decision. I am just a member. Whatever the party decides, I will abide by it. But as far as I'm concerned, I am in the race." Amechi said he remains one of the most qualified aspirants across the country. "If you look at all those aspiring, including Tinubu, tell me honestly, who is better prepared than I am? I come from the south, and we are not in conflict with the southeast, southwest, or even the north. My candidacy offers unity." From on that, turn to the Vanguard newspaper. Let's now quickly move on to the Tribune paper this morning, where there's a story that is actually neither here nor there. It's credited to the president, and it says, "No more corruption since I took over as president," Tinubu boasts. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has assured Brazilian investors that Nigeria's ongoing economic reforms are delivering tangible results, boasting that there is no more corruption since he took office. The president made the statement during a meeting on Monday with ministers from both countries and members of the Brazil Business Group, where he reaffirmed Nigeria's readiness to strengthen partnerships in technology transfer, food security, manufacturing, and renewable energy. President Tinubu described Nigeria's economic landscape as a vast, untapped market full of opportunities for Brazilian companies. He acknowledged that the reforms he's implemented were initially painful, but today the result is blossoming. It's getting clearer to the people. We have more money for the economy and no more corruption. To demonstrate the new climate of transparency, he pointed to the Central Bank of Nigeria, stating, "You don't have to know him before getting the foreign exchange you need. The speculators are out. In our currency market, the door is open for businesses." Reflecting on his previous engagements in Brazil, the Nigerian leader emphasized the urgency of moving beyond symbolic ties to concrete economic cooperation. For more on that story, turn to the Tribune this morning under the headline, "No more corruption since I took over as president," Tinubu boasts. on to some foreign stories before we wrap it up with sports news this morning. And the first one is coming from the Vanguard. It's economy related, and it says Bitcoin hits record high above $124,000. Well, that's major. Bitcoin hit a record high on Thursday during early Asian trading, surpassing $124,000, driven by favorable U.S. legislation and a rise in U.S. equities. The cryptocurrency rose above its previous July record, briefly exceeding 124,500 before retreating. U.S. stocks ended higher Wednesday, with the S&P 500 index and the tech-heavy Nasdaq reaching new heights this week, contributing to the cryptocurrency's rise. Bitcoin's value has recently soared, fueled by U.S. regulatory changes under U.S. President Donald Trump, a strong backer of the crypto sector. That's a story you'll find in the Vanguard today. And of course, you know a lot of Nigerians are actually involved in cryptocurrency trading. And moving on to another story which is actually related, still coming to you from the Vanguard. Trump wants Americans to invest retired funds in crypto. U.S. President Donald Trump is moving to make it easier for Americans to use their retirement savings to invest in non-traditional assets like cryptocurrencies, private equity, property, and gold. On Thursday, he directed regulators to review rules that might discourage employers from offering investment options in workplace retirement plans known in the U.S. as 401k. The move is intended to broaden access to investments once limited to the wealthy and institutional investors, while also unlocking new sources of capital for firms operating in those alternative asset sectors. Well, that's it on the foreign segment this morning. And now, before we go, let's wrap it up with sports news. And the first one says, Serie A, Urban ready for adventure at Hellas Verona, and still on transfers, Simons and Nkunku to undergo Tottenham AC Milan medicals. Also on the sports segment this morning, you're a coward. Agbonlhouse slams Manchester United striker Sesko over penalty decision. EPL, Chelsea poised for Isak transfer following Jackson deal. And also from the EPL, Gary Neville, Roy Keane expressed worry over two Manchester United players. And still on the transfer market, Man United take decision over Meno, ask for loan move. Well, dear viewer and listener too, that's much we can take on the newspaper review this morning, today in the dailies. Thank you for joining us, and do keep updates with us again on Monday when we bring you the first edition for the week. Until then, do stay tuned to 24 News Radio and Television, as I wish you a wonderful weekend. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
24 News Radio and Television, your trusted companion for real-time updates, expert analysis, and compelling conversations. We bring the world closer to you with clear, credible, and concise information at every moment. With our seasoned reporters and sharp broadcasters, we dig deep to uncover the facts behind the headlines from your neighborhood to the global stage. Stay connected with 24 News Radio and Television for breaking news and current happenings across the globe. 24 News Radio and Television. The world is closer than you think. From Abuja to Lagos, Sokoto to Port Harcourt, Enugu to Ilorin, all across Nigeria.